there's usually like 7 other people or more with you. You're our home team today. We're glad you're with us.
Yay. Well, I've missed it for so many weeks that I'm actually home today, so it worked out well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, good. Well, we just need our usual props and things to support our practice. Oh my gosh, we just lost Melinda somehow. That's so funny. So she'll probably hop back on here shortly. But for my folks here in the studio, so I've been brushing up on my stretching science, and I was reminded of a few things that would be that are just nice to keep in mind. So one is that when you move into a stretch, so say one of the things you want to do with your yoga practice is use it to cultivate more flexibility in your body. Maybe you've got a lot of tightness around your hips, or you've got some tightness in your shoulders, and you want to maintain what mobility you have, or maybe you want to increase the mobility that you have and create more length. Something to keep in mind is there's this reaction in our bodies called the stretch reflex. And so if you go into a stretch and you go in really fast and really hard, like to whatever, what you think, as deep as you think you should normally be able to stretch, and you get a ton of sensation immediately in that deep stretch that you just went really fast into. There's a reflex that your nervous system throws out that's called the stretch reflex, and it's a protective mechanism so that you don't get hurt. And it actually shortens and tightens all of your muscles up so that you don't pull something. And so what you want to do when we move into stretches that we're going to hold is move into them slowly and gradually. And you kind of find like just a little bit of sensation, a little bit of stretching sensation, which you don't want to feel around the insertion point of the muscles. And you want to give yourself like 20 seconds in that really early, easy stretch, 20 seconds. And then the stretch reflex starts to release. Your nervous system says, oh, I'm okay, I'm safe. I can start to let go and relax. And your muscles start to stretch out and elongate in response. So then something else to keep in mind is if you are trying to build flexibility through your yoga practice, there is a 90-second recommended hold. So if you say you want to increase your hamstring length, we can do dynamic stretches where we move in and out of the pose a number of times. And we do that a lot with me, and it feels really good. It's great for the joints. It's hydrating for the muscles. But then what you'd want to do is hold a stretch for about 90 seconds. And that's when the muscle fibers and the muscle lengths will actually elongate and start to change for the long term, like hold that sense of elongation. So I just wanted to have you tuck that away so that if your goal is to have more flexible hips or more flexible hamstrings, that you could do that with me. And then maybe every other day, have that be something that you're working on, and you set, about 5 minutes aside to just kind of work on your hamstring length, and then over time watch and see if you start to see a change. Things to know that influence our flexibility are the shapes of our bones. So some people have different bony shapes, and so your neighbor might be able to do different things or bend different ways than you're able to, just because of the shape and the way that your bones articulate. So those are things that we can't really affect or change. And then also, as we get older, our joints actually start to change themselves, right? So we maybe are getting arthritis, or the joints start to get affected, and we can't really change that too much either, but we can try to maintain what flexibility we have and maybe start to gain more that we have lost through working with the surrounding tissues. So there you go. That's my stretching intro today. And what we're going to do to begin with, and I'll probably have more bits and bobs that I'll share with you as we move into our practice. But to begin with, we're just going to start to stretch, open our front body. So we're going to start with a heart opening. We often do this. I'm going to have you take a couple of blocks. One is going to be on its medium height. It goes under your head, and the other is on its lowest height, and it's going to go underneath your shoulder blades, underneath your scapula. So that low block is like a fulcrum, and it's going to lift your heart and chest up. And let the front of the chest and the muscles that run across the front of the chest and into the arms elongate. The head rests on the block that's higher, and you might have to fine tune how you've arrived. So you might scoot back or scoot toward your feet a little so that you really feel like the heart is opening. It doesn't feel like it's collapsing. The heads of the shoulders are spilling open. They're not popping up toward the ceiling and the heart collapsed. And the block isn't hitting you too low. If it hits you too low, then the back bend ends up being in the mid to low back, which can be a little bit uncomfortable. And also we tend to be kind of flexible there anyway. So feel around for the best place to be. If you have a shoulder injury and this doesn't feel like one of your shoulders feels vulnerable, you could put a blanket underneath that shoulder or a pillow so that the arm is lifted up. Or you could just keep that hand on your belly. And then making sure your lower back feels comfortable here. If you need to, you can put a blanket underneath your hips. If your low back feels like it's compressed. And then otherwise settling in. How are you doing here?
It doesn't, yeah.
Go ahead and sit up just a little bit, and I'm gonna move this down a little lower.
Okay.
There you go. Is that okay?
Okay.
That feel better?
Yes.
All right, we had to do a little fine tuning. We had to move a block a little bit lower down, and now Jerry's a little bit more comfortable. Are you completely more comfortable, or are you not excited about this shape, Jerry? I'm looking at your face. So excited isn't the right word, he says. So I'm going to use Jerry as an example. One thing that you can do if the block doesn't feel good, it can be kind of hard and bumpy. You could put a pillow under your shoulders. We could roll up a blanket and put something softer there. So know that you're not stuck with the thing that the teacher told you to do. You can go, this is an okay shape, but I need something softer. Jerry, do you want a blanket instead of a block? Okay, we're doing okay. So here's the deal. No, not yet. We're here for 90 seconds. And here's the deal. I'm going to talk to you while we're all hanging out here and breathing. The thoracic spine, the upper back, all the vertebrae that are attached to the spinal column, or that are attached to your rib cage, they curve convexly. And this part of the back can get really stiff because of all the things we do that are out in front of us. Our head's forward of the spine. This, it kind of pulls us into this sort of flexed, rounded position. And then all of our muscles and our connective tissues tighten and shorten and hold us there. There's a lot of fascia, which is connective tissue that encases the muscles, that runs up the front of the body, and it can get really stiff. And so actually these passive back bends that we've just moved ourselves into, where we can just let gravity do the work and we can be held in a shape, are a great way to help, again, get those muscles that run up the front of the body and across the front of the chest to elongate and release and give them some time to do so. So as you're here, we'll be here for maybe, I don't know, maybe 30 more seconds or so, slowing down the exhales, long, slow exhales. That will help us connect to the relaxation response. And a nice deep inhale. Our breath is like a little key to unlock the nervous system, to help us work with our nervous system to move out of the stress response and into the relaxation response, just using long, slow exhales, smoothing out the quality of the breath. So we're going to stay here just a little bit longer, letting the spine be in this supported extension. And if it feels okay, bring your hands down by your hips, so your palms face your hips. And with an inhale, like you're drawing 2 stripes across the ceiling, arc your arms up and overhead and back toward the wall behind you. And then with an exhale, bring the arms back down the way they came up, so that they end up with your exhale next to your hips. And do that a few more times. So again, whenever I invite you to do something, if it doesn't feel good in your body, you can always say no, thank you. But if it works for you, we're just mobilizing our shoulder joints. So this is an example of dynamic stretching. We're moving in and out of a stretch through the arms right now. As the arms come up alongside the cheekbones, the latissimus muscles are elongated. Those are these big muscles that run up the back body and connect to the arms. They also, every time the arms come alongside the cheekbones, the upper back is moved into a little bit more of a back bend, unrounding the thoracic spine. So we'll do one more, inhaling and reaching the arms up and back. And then exhaling and bringing the arms back down next to the hips. And I think that's been more than 90 seconds. And so that was a nice time to let the front body elongate and open. We're going to carefully roll to one side or the other and just gently support yourselves up. Good. Move the blocks out from under you and set them aside, and then come back onto your back body. What you'll need, Candy, is a strap. And if you need to put a blanket down for padding, you can. Don't need a ball. So you need a strap. And you're just going to lie back down onto your back body. Arms are alongside the hips. So I was talking about dynamic stretching. We're going to start to move our pelvis and move our spine a little bit right now. As you inhale, rock your tailbone into the floor. Feel your lower back arches away from the ground and how that elongates your low abdomen, the pubic bone gliding away from the sternum. And then exhale, pull your navel down and print your low back into the floor. Feel how the abdomen is contracted and your lower back muscles are elongating on your back body. So rocking the pelvis, tailbone drops down. Inhale and exhale, pelvic rim pulls into the floor, navel pulls down. Exhale, your whole spine getting tractioned here, warmed and hydrated and nourished, the whole spinal column. Really nice movement. And this is an example of dynamic stretching. So we're moving in and out of these stretches. When one side of the body is elongating, the muscles on the opposite side of the joint are contracting and shortening. So in every action where maybe there's some strengthening happening, there's also stretching happening somewhere. So there's always that happening as we're moving through space. Good. So when you're ready, rock both of your knees into your chest, catch your kneecaps with your hands, and pull both of your thighs with an exhale. Pull both of your thighs in toward your trunk, and then pull your knees away from each other. And press the knees away from your trunk and then pull the legs back together. So you're drawing circles on the ceiling with your knees. Exhale, the thighs come in, we pull them apart, we press them away with the inhale, they come back together and in toward the trunk. So just nice circular motion. And again, this is dynamic movement. We're moving with the breath. It's a wonderful way of collecting the mind and the body and the breath together. Change directions when you're ready. And this is how we get synovial fluid to secrete in our synovial joints, like our hip joints. It's how we lubricate the sockets. And you can feel how we're stretching the inner thighs as we pull the legs away. But we're kind of moving through that stretch. But you know, you can do this and you feel better. You know, like if you got up and stood and walked around, you'd go, oh, my hips are moving a little bit better than they were before I did that. And so, you know, it's a nice, these are nice movements to do. You don't have to hold everything for 90 seconds to feel better and to enjoy the benefits of stretching. But if you want to really, really like lengthen and have like, make a change in your muscle length that actually lasts for longer than a day or so, that's where we want to start stretching things for longer holds. So place your right foot on the ground and catch your left leg, and let's do more dynamic stretching. We're going to flex the left foot and inhale, reach the left foot to the sky, stretch the back of the leg open, and then point the foot and bend the knee with your exhale. So go back and forth a few times. Inhale, stretching the leg into the sky, pointing the foot, exhale, bending the knee. We'll go back and forth, and you feel this is such nice movement, right? We're moving the joints. We're starting to warm the muscles and strengthen the muscles around the knee joint, the ankle joint, the hip joint. And you can feel how as you repeat these movements, they get a little easier, or maybe there's a little, yeah, there's more ease. The textures might start to change a little bit. Maybe your range of motion increases with each repetition. Now, the next time you stretch your leg into the sky, we're just going to leave it there. And this is where your strap's going to come in handy. So find your strap, unravel it, and then take that strap around the arch of your foot, and then straighten your leg out. Give yourself lots of strap so that you don't even feel like you're stretching yet. So you've got lots of strap, you've leveled off your pelvis, you've straightened the leg. And then I want you to move very slowly into this stretch. So you're going to start to pull on the strap so that the leg starts to come toward your trunk. You can think about sending the head of the femur toward the sit bone. And just find the first little hint of stretch and pause there. We're working with our stretch reflex right now. So we're just going to take like 4 breaths, 20 seconds or so at this very early stage. What we don't want to do is move to a really stretchy spot where suddenly everything is gripping and shortening and protecting and tightening down. We want to kind of ease into the stretch. And then you might notice that there's a point where something relaxes. There's less, maybe you don't even have any stretch sensation anymore. There's an invitation to go a little deeper, and you go tiny bit at a time. Maybe you pull the leg in closer. Maybe you reach your heel toward the ceiling and pull the ball of the foot toward your shin. Find a little more stretching sensation and then pause there. So we're not forcing anything. We don't want to find any sensation, pinching, sharp sensation at the sit bones or behind the knees where the muscles insert. We're always looking for stretch in the belly of the muscles. So we've got just a couple more breaths to go, and we'll have been here for about 90 seconds. And if you really wanted to work this, you might even stay for 90 more seconds, but we're just kind of doing 90 seconds today. And then when you're ready, release. Set your left foot down on the ground. Let's set the strap down, and for a moment, interlace your hands. Reach your palms toward the ceiling. So you flip your palms toward the ceiling. So we're releasing those hand muscles that we're just holding our strap. And then if it feels okay, do you reach your arms back toward the wall behind you? Good. Take a few breaths. Nice wide breaths into the base of the rib cage. And then unlace your hands, rock your right thigh into your chest, catch your right leg with your hands or with a strap, and then begin to dynamically stretch your leg. Flex your foot and inhale the heel to the sky, and then point the foot and bend the knee. Good, back and forth we go. So this is our dynamic stretching movement that's going to lead to a static hold. It's a really nice way to go. So this could be like your little sequence you do at home for 5 minutes. A few dynamic hamstring and calf stretches followed by a static 90-second hold. So we get to lubricate and warm the joints. So as we age, we start to lose flexibility. We lose muscle fibers. And maybe because of the way we've been holding ourselves posturally and habitually, you know, our bodies start to take on these shapes of what we do. And so do the muscle fibers. But we can, if the bone is still shaped well, we can start to strengthen and stretch and make our way back toward a more balanced position or posture, which is really good for our joints. When you're ready, take that strap over the right foot and slide that right leg into the sky. Find just that first little hint of stretch. Let the arms move into their sockets, draw the shoulder blades down the back. Find just that first hint of stretch and sensation running up the back of your right leg, and pause there. So you're not pushing, you're not striving, you're just hanging out and breathing and noticing the sensation, noticing as it changes. Noticing if your breath can support you here, maybe long, slow exhales could invite a sense of relaxation or release, or a sense of safety. And as you feel like there's a little release, a little deepening, a little micro move, a sense of maybe pulling the strap or sending the head of the femur toward the sit bone or reaching the heel toward the ceiling. But we're never moving to a place that feels strained. If you move to the place where you feel strained or there's sharpness, that's when that nervous system is going to start to react with that stretch reflex and tighten things back down. So we'll take about 2 more breaths here. And when you're ready, you can set your right foot back down on the ground. Good. Set your straps aside and open your arms out nice and wide like a T, and take your feet wider than hip width apart. And windshield wiper your legs to the left as you roll your gaze to the right. So a little gentle twist, and then bring them back through the center with an inhale. And they spill to the right and you roll your gaze to the left. So gentle twisting back and forth. You're just going as far as feels good in your body. Getting a little internal and external rotation in the hips. The femurs rotating in their sockets, a little movement in the neck and shoulders. Good. And then when you're ready, we're going to roll over and you can go to either side and we'll make our way to our hands and knees. Okay. So pad your knees. If you need knee padding, you can stick a blanket down for yourself. And we'll put our blocks out in front of us. So they're there. So we're going to be moving between cat and dog back first. So more dynamic stretching, stretching the front body, stretching the back body. So you're planting your hands under your shoulders. If that doesn't work for your wrists, you could put blocks down and be on your forearms, or you could be on your knuckles. Okay, so be working as feels good in your body. On an exhale, take the tailbone down, pull the navel spineward, round your spine like an angry cat, let your head hang, and feel how that stretches all of the muscles and connective tissue that run across the back body. And then with an inhale, lift the sit bones and the tailbone and pull your spine into a back bend, chest moving through the frame of the arms, and this stretches the whole front body. So we go back and forth. This is, again, nice dynamic stretch of the front body and the back body, and also waking up the musculature on the front body and the back body. Our flexors, spinal extensors. And we feel how when the muscles that run up the back body shorten and engage, the muscles that run across the front body elongate. Good. Eventually come to neutral, to tabletop pose. So you're in between those two extremes you're exploring. Take your lower legs and pivot them, both of them, to the right, and then look over your right shoulder to your feet and feel how that just stretched your whole left side body open. And then take your lower legs to the left, both of them, look over your right shoulder, and yeah, look over, so your legs swing, both of the legs swing to the right, so your feet are gonna go to the right, and then your head looks over to the right, over your right shoulder to your feet to open the left side, and then the lower legs swing to the left, the feet swing to the left, you look over your left shoulder to your feet, and just go back and forth one more time, feeling again that the truth of as one side elongates, the other side is contracting and shortening. Good. And then when you're ready, come back through the center. Take your hands, maybe one hand print forward of your shoulders. Spin your elbow creases toward your thumb and index finger. Arms are straight, toes tuck under. lift your knees up off the ground and shift into down dog. So you're going to press the tops of the thigh bones back into downward facing dog. And then inhaling your knees back to the ground and exhaling, you're going to move toward prayer pose. You just go as far as feels good for your joints, sit bones to heels, arms reaching long in front of you. And then inhale back to hands and knees. Tuck your toes under and press back to down dog. So keeping the knees a little bent will allow the pelvis to stay neutral and the spine long. And then inhale back to knees and exhale back to prayer pose. Now, the next time we get to downward facing dog, we'll hold down dog for maybe 3 to 5 breaths. If that doesn't work for you, or if being in down dog traditional with hands and feet on the floor doesn't work, you can always come up to a wall, plant your hands on the wall and reach your hips away from the wall. So work where it feels good for you to work, but feeling again that the hamstrings are stretching, the shoulders, the latissimus muscles are stretching. Denise, you can go ahead and come all the way up and use the wall if that helps, so that you're not on your shoulders so much. Is that better for you? Is it your shoulders that are bothering you? Okay, and does it hurt for it to come up like this? So instead, I'm just gonna have you turn your back to the wall, and I want you to press back like this. Don't move your hips away from the wall. There you go. Is that okay for your shoulder? Do that instead. Perfect. So last couple of breaths. From here, we're going to transition to our standing forward fold. So when you're ready to move out of down dog, either walk your hands toward your feet or your feet toward your hands, and then come to maybe the top of your mat. And if you need blocks, bring them by. We're going to plant our feet hip width apart, and knees are a little bit soft so that the pelvis can tip over the thigh bones. And you're going to find this other hamstring stretch and calf stretch here, right? So some of you, if you have osteoporosis, low bone density in your spine, you'll want to be in a half forward fold. So with blocks under your hands and your spine nice and neutral. And so if you're trying to take this half forward fold, you want to see if you can bend your knees, lift your sit bones, and let your chest come through the frame of the arm so the upper back is unrounded. There you go. And for others, if that's not a concern for you, and you can move more deeply into the pose, you're going to hang and let your spine round. You just want to make sure that the stretch is in your legs. You don't feel like you're kind of hanging off of your lumbar spine here. Okay, so this is another one of our shapes. We're going to hang out here for a little while longer. So it's a static hold. Thinking about feeling the 3 corners of your feet, big toe ball, pinky toe balls, and heels. Okay, if you don't need the blocks, you don't need to use them. You can have your hands alongside your feet. We all have different proportioned bodies. Some of us have really long legs, and it's really hard to get our fingertips to the floor. Not because our muscles are tight, but just because of our body proportion. So don't worry about getting your hands to the floor. If you need blocks, use blocks. We'll just take a couple more breaths. Thinking about sit bones spreading, maybe lifting your sit bones away from your heels. And then when you're ready to come up, soften your knees, come halfway up. Find that halfway point. The back is flat, the hands might come to the hips, the elbows pull back, and you're going to use your hamstrings to hinge you all the way up with a flat back. So the pelvis pulls upright, pulling the spine with it. When we're upside down that long, you might have dizziness when you finally come back up to standing. So allowing that to arise and pass. Okay, take a couple breaths. Good, and then let's pick up a block and we'll do a little bit more shoulder work here. We're going to take the block and pass it behind us and then in front of us. And so as the block goes behind us, you'll feel your muscles between the shoulder blades engaging, which means the muscles in the front of the body are lengthening. Just feeling that. So again, back to this dynamic movement. Again, I know I'm a little repetitive, but so many of the things you keep passing, and I'm going to pretend I'm on my telephone texting someone, right? It's all out in front of us. The head hangs forward and all of these muscles get really shortened and they pull us into this rounded position. And then that's like the shape that we're in for a long time. And our muscles say, oh, you want me to hold you there? I'll hold you there. So this kind of movement helps to bring balance. We're going to hold the block behind us now. Think about trying to pull it apart with your hands. Strengthen your triceps. Those are the muscles that straighten the elbows. See if you can straighten through the elbows. Reach the block for the floor, broaden across the collarbones, lift the chest. So we want to feel like you've got a nice amount of effort here, but it's not so intense that you feel like your body's kind of clamping down and protecting. So find just the right amount of stretch. Not too much, not too little. Nice deep breath. And then if you feel like you can deepen, the way you would deepen maybe would be to straighten the elbows more or to lift the hands away from the tail a little more. But if you do that, you want to make sure that the shoulders don't pop forward and the chest doesn't collapse. You also want to make sure that the low front ribs don't flare. Too many things to think about, huh? But nevertheless, and you feel how this is also very strengthening to hold this stretch. So there's strengthening happening in addition to us being very focused on creating flexibility. Good. One more breath here. Good. And then release. Set that block down. Good. Float the arms out about shoulder height. Is that okay for you, Denise? If you start to feel like your neck muscles doing the work, it's too high for you, Denise. Then externally rotate the arms, palms roll up, and internally rotate the arms, thumbs roll down. Good, and just go back and forth. So again, dynamic movement, really wonderful, lubricating the shoulder joints. It's wonderful unless you have a shoulder injury and it feels like it's creating, exacerbating an existing injury. So always make sure if you need to, you can move out of these. Any shape that doesn't feel good for you. The next time you internally rotate your arms, we're going to leave them there, internally rotated, thumbs pointing down. And I'm going to have you take the arms down, and I'm going to see if you can press the arms back a little. And can you bend one forearm and then the other? Maybe you're catching your wrists. Maybe you can wiggle your hands down your arms and touch your elbows. Don't do anything that creates sharpness or pain in the shoulder joint. And so if this is creating any sharpness or pain on the front of the shoulder joint, you could just go back to maybe holding your block behind your back if that felt like a good shape for you, okay? So wherever you are, notice if your front ribs are pushing forward and could they soften back down into the body? And take a couple breaths. Good. And then can you change the stack of your forearms, so the other forearms on top? So again, it might just be that you're holding your wrists. It might be that you can touch your elbows. It might be that you have to just hold a block. So we're not forcing anything. We'll take a couple more breaths. Collarbones are broad. Low front ribs are soft, lifting some length up the inner legs to the spine, to the crown of the head. Good. And then when you're ready, release. Good. Warrior one, Virabhadrasana one. We're going to keep the left leg forward and the right leg gets to stride back. And we want to be set up so that your feet are like hip width apart. You don't feel like you're on a train track. And the leg that's behind you spirals inwardly. The hip comes forward but the toes are kind of pointing toward that upper corner of your mat. So they're not, the back leg foot isn't pointing straight ahead. It's off on a diagonal a little bit. We're going to bend the front knee, keeping the back leg straight, keeping the pelvis upright. And the arms get to reach forward just as high as feels good for your shoulders. They might come alongside the cheekbones, or if you have a shoulder injury, they might just reach out in front of you. And then with the exhale, the leg straightens, the arms come down. Okay, so again, dynamic stretching. We're inhaling to move into warrior one. With an exhale, we're moving out of it. So for some of you, if you have arthritis in that front knee, it actually might feel really uncomfortable to bend and straighten that knee. If you'd rather just hold warrior one, that's fine. If it feels good to keep moving, keep moving. When you're ready, we're going to hold it. Okay, so hanging out here and breathing. So the back leg's nice and strong. And if we're keeping that pelvis upright, this can be a really nice stretch for our hip flexors, for the muscles that cross over the front of the hip joint that can get really short and tight when we're maybe sitting a lot. Pressing that front heel down to connect with your gluteal muscles. Arms lengthening forward and maybe lifting up. It's a nice stretch through our latissimus. But all of these shapes are also very strengthening too, right? We'll take a couple more breaths here, finding a place for your gaze to rest. Feeling how the front body is getting elongated here. And then when you're ready, releasing the arms, straightening the front leg, and we'll step forward. Good job. Second side, left leg is forward, or right leg is forward, left leg is backward. Whichever leg you didn't do. I don't remember if I was mirroring you or not. So second side is easiest for me to say. Left, so the back leg spirals inwardly, that hip is coming forward, and the front leg, there's a sense of that hip kind of pulling back to help you square your pelvis up. Think about your feet, feel into the corners of your feet, round them down. And with an inhale, the front knee bends and the arms sweep forward. They might stop shoulder height, they may go up higher. With an exhale, the arms come down, the front leg straightens. Inhaling, moving into Virabhadrasana 1. Exhaling, moving out of Virabhadrasana 1. As you move into it slowly, it's an eccentric contraction for the right quadricep, which means it's working, it's strengthening even as it's elongating. Good. As you move out of that pose, it's a concentric contraction, that muscle shortening. So nice strengthening around the knee joint here. Now, when you move into warrior one, this next time, let's hold it. So again, the hands might come shoulder height. If you've got mobility, the arms might come up a little higher. If one arm is good, feeling great, and the other arm needs a rest, you could just have one arm up. So whatever feels good to you here, but holding. So we feel that in addition to stretching the hip flexors, we're also cultivating some strength through these longer holds. We're cultivating some stamina. Steady in the breath, steady in the gaze. Front ribs soft, low abdomen engaged, maybe that left gluteal muscle engaged, giving you a little support from behind. Good. And then when you're ready, the arms come down, front leg releases straight. We step forward. Good. Give your hips a little shake out. All right. So a little bit of side bending. And Denise, I'm going to have you be mindful about that shoulder. You'll probably take the side. You're going to catch a hold of your left forearm, draw it up and over. So you're side bending here. If this shoulder doesn't feel good, you could do the side bend, just kind of sliding your hands down your thighs, right? You don't have to take the arm up, but if you can take the arm up, go for it. It's just a nice release for that lat. Good. And then inhale, come back through the center and release the arms down. Good. Inhale, reach the arms up. You're going to take a hold of your right forearm, draw it up and over, palm facing the floor. So again, a shoulder-friendly option if you've got shoulder stuff going on is just letting one of your hands slide down the slide down its leg. And with an inhale coming up and then releasing the arms down. One more time to each side, arms sweeping up, touching that wrist, drawing the arm up and over. Breathing into the side that's opening. And then inhale, come up and release the arms down. And one more time, inhaling up, touching your wrist, right arm goes up and over, heart rolling away from the floor. And then inhaling back up and releasing the arms down. Good. So another standing sequence, we're going to play with Warrior 2. And maybe we'll do a little side bend with it as well. So we're going to face the long edge of our mat. You're going to turn to face the long edge of your yoga mat. Your feet are parallel. You can just place your hands on your hips for right now. And the feet are parallel. The knees are pointing straight ahead. The toes are pointing straight ahead. We're going to take the whole right leg and internally rotate it so that if you look at your right heel, it pivots toward the short edge of your yoga mat and your right groin deepens. And then look at your left leg and you're going to have the whole left leg externally rotate so that the knee and the left toes point straight ahead toward that other short edge of your yoga mat. Okay? And then turn your trunk, your heart and lungs toward the long edge of the mat. And when you're ready, bending your left knee, it starts to slide out over your heel. If your feet are too narrow, your knee might pass your heel. See if you can elongate your stance. And then straighten that left leg. And if you'd like to add arms, they reach out away from the heart as the knee bends and the knee's tracking right over the center of the foot. And then the arms maybe they come back to the heart as you straighten the leg. So inhaling into Warrior 2 and exhaling and moving out of it. Inhale, moving into it. Exhale, moving out of it. And then we're going to hold. So again, stretching, but strengthening as well today. So here's a variation if you'd like to try. Your right hand, the one that's behind you, comes to your right thigh. Your left arm is still reaching forward. The palm rolls up, and that whole rotation comes from the upper arm. And then you take that arm up alongside the cheekbone, and you start to do a little side bend. The heart is turning toward the long edge of the mat. You might feel a nice opening through the whole left side of the body, the left knee bending out over the heel if it can, or at least moving in that direction. When you're ready, come all the way back to that traditional Warrior 2, and then straighten the leg, hands to heart. Good, toes point back toward the long edge of the mat. Second side. So the left leg internally rotates. The heel, that short, the heel pivots toward the short edge of the mat. The right leg externally rotates. You pivot on your heel, the toes point toward the short edge of your yoga mat, the other short edge. Your right knee slowly bends. Your right thigh moves more parallel with the floor. It doesn't have to get completely parallel. And then you straighten the right leg. As you're moving, your heart and your lungs are turning toward the long edge of your mat, but your pelvis does not need to. You do not have to turn that pelvis perfectly square to the long edge of the mat because that might affect how your knee is tracking over your foot. So you're just kind of playing with it. Arms reaching out. Think about your feet, the three corners of the feet grounded. The arches are lifting. Remember that if you have a shoulder that's a little sore, it doesn't have to move. It could just stay on your hip, which I'm demonstrating right now, right? So you could just be moving one arm at a time. Now, when you're ready, we're gonna hold warrior two. You're gonna hold that pose, knee bent, coming in as deep as feels good to you. The left hand comes to your strong left leg. The right palm rolls up toward the ceiling. The right arm comes alongside the cheekbone. And there's a sense of lifting up and then finding a little side bend, opening up the rib cage, the heart and the lung, rolling toward the long edge of the mat. Feeling your right heel pressing down into the ground, the right knee bent, the left leg nice and straight. Take one more breath here. And then draw yourselves all the way back up and straighten the right leg. Relax the arms down. Turn your toes back toward the long edge of your mat. And then heel toe your feet back together. Good. And give your hips a little shake. Nice. So we're going to make our way back down toward the floor now. If you feel like it, you could come through a downward facing dog. And again, if you have a shoulder injury, you might just want to come to the ground. So where we're headed is onto our abdomen. So you can come to your abdomen again. So if you'd like, you might bend the knees and fold forward and plant the hands and step to down dog. If that doesn't work for your shoulder, just come to your hands and knees and then move on to your abdomen. That's where we're headed. Okay. When you get to your abdomen, if you need padding, like you've got bony parts that need a little soft support under you, you could take a blanket and fold it up and make kind of a nice long fold and put that down for yourself so you have a little bit of padding. We're coming into Sphinx Pose. So your elbows are going to be underneath your shoulders, the forearms parallel, and the legs lengthening back out of the pelvis, tops of the feet are on the floor. And you could be here and kind of letting gravity have you, and your shoulders would be up around your ears. If possible, see if you could push the forearms down and engage the muscles under the shoulder blades, draw the shoulder blades down the back, okay? If that's not possible and you're feeling like it's just too much in your low back, you could move your elbows forward of your shoulders to make it a little bit softer bend in the back, okay? The pubic bone is grounding down. The legs are strong. They're reaching out of the pelvis, back toward the toes, back toward the wall behind you. The inner legs rolling up. And the legs could be hip width apart or even wider if that feels easier on your lower back. So holding this shape for a moment, again, is stretching the muscles or the muscles and connective tissue that run up the front of the body. Kind of like when we were doing that. Okay, so we'll take a couple more breaths here. If some of you are craving more opening, and it's, you know, if you have the flexibility through the spine, you could lift your elbows up. We just want to make sure it doesn't result with your shoulders in your ears or your lower back feeling compressed. Okay, tailbone is long, shoulders releasing down the back. Take another breath or so. Good. And then when you're ready, lower down. And we're going to bring our hands alongside our hips and our forehead to the floor. So again, if you have a really stiff thoracic spine, upper back, that could be another reason why you might want to put the blanket down in case when you put your forehead down, it just, there's nowhere for you to breathe. This might give you a little bit more room here. So know that's always an option. Feel the legs strong and grounded. And now let's activate the muscles on the back body. See if you can lift the front of the shoulders away from the floor. And then feel the front of the shoulders broadening away from each other. And then see if you can lift your chest and your forehead away from the floor. Okay, so we're in an active back bend. We're using the muscles of our back to lift us. If your lower back is feeling compressed, could your gluteal muscles engage? Could your tailbone reach toward your heels? Can your low abdomen engage? Pubic bone drawing toward navel. Good. And last couple breaths, maybe the palms float off of the floor. Good. And then making a pillow, maybe out of your hands, lower down, turn your cheek to one side. And rest. If you need to roll onto your back and draw your knees into your chest to release your lower back, or if you need to take a prayer pose. Okay. So this last time, I'm going to invite you to take a strap and drape the strap across your back, okay? And see if you can hold on to it. Your palms are going to be facing the ceiling. Your hands will be about shoulder width apart or a little wider if you need more room. And you're pulling that strap taut between your hands. The legs ground down, the pubic bone grounds down, the tailbone is long. And we're going to inhale and lift the front of the shoulders away from the floor. And then reach the strap toward your heel. See if you can let the chest and the forehead float off the ground. And then take a few breaths here. See if you maybe could take 5 slow breaths. If you need to rest before then, take a rest. Make sure you're not feeling discomfort or pain anywhere. You're just challenging yourself in a way that feels appropriate for you. Good. And then when you're ready to come down, when you're finished with those 5 breaths, lowering slowly. And when you are ready, hands might come under the shoulders. You might slide back to prayer pose. If prayer pose is with your sit bones reaching toward your heels, your arms reaching out in front of you, that might not work for those with, knee issues or even shoulder issues. If it would be more comfortable to take that same shape on your back, you lie on your back, you give your knees a hug, and then you don't have so much pressure bearing down on your knee joints or your shoulder joints. We're all going to come in this direction anyway, so when you're finished with prayer pose, go ahead and transition onto your back body and give your knees a hug. Rock them from side to side. If you get onto your back body and you need a little pillow to make your forehead and chin more level with each other, give yourself that kindness. Otherwise, if you're fine the way you are, great. And then plant your feet down on the ground so that they're in line with your 2 sit bones. And your arms are in your scapula to flip underneath you. So they're on the back of your ribs and your upper chest feels more open. We're going to be moving in and out of bridge pose. So the feet press down, the arms press down, the front ribs are soft. And on an inhale, let your pelvis float up. So inhale, press down to lift up. The pelvis lifts up. And as you exhale, let the pelvis come back to the ground. And as you inhale, press feet down, arms down, float the pelvis up. Think about your thighs reaching toward your knees. And then exhale, lower down. See if you can make sure that your low front ribs aren't sharply lifting you into this back bend. We want them to be soft. And see if you can, as you lift up, keep the inner edge of the foot pressing down. We want the knees to be tracking right over the center of the foot. It's really common for the outer hamstrings and the outer hips to work and the inner legs to kind of relax and take it easy, but we want the inner legs to be active. The next time you lift into bridge pose, stay there. Take about 5 slow breaths. Hold that shape. Imagine you're holding a block between your thighs, and Denise, you can wiggle your feet forward a little bit. There you go. Now press down into the heels. Good. So pressing down into the feet, pressing into the arms, soften the front ribs. And then think about your thighs shooting toward your knees. If your lower back feels like it's getting compressed, see if you could get your low abdomen engaged. Draw pubic bone toward your sternum a little bit more. 2 more breaths. And then release. Coming down with the hips. Good. Take your arms wide. Take your feet wider than hip width apart where we had them earlier. Nice and easy. Windshield wiper the legs to the left, look to the right. Windshield wiper the legs to the right, look to the left. Good. And then we'll come back to the center and just stretch our legs out nice and long. If your lower back is uncomfortable and it would be nice to have a roll under your knees, give yourself that present or that gift, or keep your knees bent if that's easier. A deep breath in, exhale, letting go of physical effort. The muscles get to just drape off of the bones. The mind gets to even take a little bit of a break here. Settling down. Remembering earlier I was talking about how the exhale is connected to the relaxation response. And so as we move into Shavasana, this last shape, this last pose, the final relaxation, we could use that exhale, just stretching it out a little bit longer than the inhale, as a way of talking to our deeper self or our nervous system, even if you want to think of it that way, and letting it know it's safe, feeling held by the earth, feeling supported by your breath. And then drawing a nice deep breath in and feeling the lungs fill up, maybe feeling the belly expand and feeling everything settle with the exhale as it moves out. When you're ready, you can bend your knees and ease your way over onto one side or the other. And then use an arm to help spiral your way upright. And we'll find something to sit on, maybe a blanket, maybe a block. You could sit with your legs crossed. You could kneel, you could keep one leg stretched out long if that makes a knee happy. You could sit in a chair. Be comfortable, but feel yourself upright. See if you can make sure you're not sitting on your tail. Feel the pelvis is level. Feel the base of the rib cage, the entire circumference, the front of the ribs, the sides of the ribs, and the back of the ribs balanced levelly over your pelvis. Feel your shoulder girdle resting on top of your level rib cage. And then maybe let your cheekbones soften back until you feel like your ears are over your shoulders, or at least moving in that direction. So that there's a sense of being balanced between the front of ourselves and the back of ourselves. And maybe you could feel like your left hip and your right hip are holding you equally. And with that downward groundedness, you feel this rebounding upward liftedness of getting taller, an ability to get taller. And that there's room for more breath when you're balanced between front and back and left and right. That the diaphragm can work with more ease. The heart and lungs can work with more ease. The belly and digestive organs have more room to work with ease. With an inhale, rolling our palms skyward and maybe bringing them together at the heart with an exhale. You can bow inwardly if you feel like it, thanking yourself for setting some time aside to move and breathe and be together and to be in your own presence. Thanks for being here, everyone. Namaste.